Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a really sharp left turn into just absolute chaos.
Yeah, that is honestly the best way to put it.
We are
Chaos.
strapping in for Dungeon Crawler, Carl, and specifically zooming in on book 4.
Right. The Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinniman.
Exactly. And I have to say, just going through the research for this one, if you thought the previous floors were intense, the sources we have today paint a picture that is just, well, it's completely unhinged.
Unhinged is probably the most polite way you could describe it. I
Yep.
mean, it is a fundamental shift in the entire reality of the dungeon.
It really is.
Because, usually when we talk about fantasy dungeons, we think of endless corridors.
Yeah.
Maybe a dragon at the bottom.
Like a linear progression down into the dark.
Right, exactly. But what Matt Dinniman has constructed here, specifically on the 5th floor, is a complete rewrite of the physics.
Yeah.
It's not just a dungeon anymore.
No, we're not just talking about stronger monsters or harder puzzles. We're talking about a floor made entirely of bubbles.
Bubbles. Just floating, isolated worlds.
1,172 bubbles, to be precise.
Which is just a staggering number if you stop and think about the logistical scale of that for a second.
It is. And each one is essentially a massive isolated snow globe.
Yep.
And our main man, Carl, and the fan favorite Princess Donut, who, for anyone new to the lore, is a talking, magic-wielding, award-winning Persian cat,
Naturally.
naturally. They are stuck in bubble 543. And the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We really need to unpack how they navigate and survive a massive political minefield inside this specific bubble.
Because the situation there isn't just a simple matter of fighting the bad guys. It's so much more complicated.
Right, it's a pressure cooker. It's basically a sociological experiment gone horribly wrong.
You have biker gang camels.
Ah.
You have these nihilistic gnomes flying around in airships.
Uh-huh.
And you have shape-shifting changelings who are actively rewriting the social fabric of the level from the inside out.
All while Carl is desperately trying to assemble a literal world-ending artifact.
The titular gate of the feral gods.
Exactly. So here is the game plan for today. We are going to break down the physics of this snow globe world because the geometry actually matters a lot for the strategy.
It absolutely does.
Then we're going to dissect the 3 major factions and why they completely hate each other.
Oh, the grudges run deep.
Very deep. And then we're going to look at the whole heist mechanic of getting this artifact. And finally, we have to talk about the puppy.
Oh boy. The puppy, the Orthrus incident, that sequence is, it is a massive stress test for the
It
reader.
really is.
Okay.
It had me sweating. And then to wrap it up, we'll look at how Carl takes all these broken pieces and weaponizes them against the game runners themselves.
Which is the real turning point of the series.
It is. But let's start with the setting. Because as we said, this isn't a hallway, it isn't a cave system, it's a bubble. Walk us through the geography of floor 5.
So you have to imagine a sphere, or really more of a dome with a flat bottom. Matt Dinniman has essentially created a closed ecosystem here. Unlike previous floors where you could theoretically just run endlessly in one direction, here you can see the walls. You can look up and see the sky, but the sky is a projection.
That's a key detail the sources mention a lot, the sheer claustrophobia of it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
There's a specific moment in the text where they realize the sky is fake, and it triggers this intense, primal fear.
Because you are in a cage.
A very large cage, sure, but a cage nonetheless. The horizon isn't real, the sun isn't real.
Well, at least until the sun god shows up, but we'll get to that.
Right. We will definitely get to that.
And inside Bubble 543 specifically, the layout is set up almost like a target or maybe a layer cake.
Exactly. It's both a vertical and a horizontal puzzle. You have 4 distinct quadrants. And this is crucial for you to understand because of the lock mechanism on the floor.
You cannot leave the bubble until you conquer the castle in all 4 quadrants.
All 4. You can't just pick a lane. You have to absolutely dominate the entire map.
So you can't play as a pacifist. And you can't just be a specialist in one type of terrain. You have to engage with every single biome.
That's the trap of the 5th floor. So, starting from the very top, you have the air quadrant.
Yeah.
This is high altitude, incredibly windy, lots of floating islands and platforms.
Which is where Carl and Donut spawn in, right?
Yes, right in the thick of it. Then below that, you have the land quadrant. Surrounding that landmass, you have the sea quadrant.
Right.
And finally, buried deep inside the central mountain of the land, you have the tomb quadrant.
The necropolis of Answer.
Right. So vertically and horizontally, you have to traverse and conquer every biome. And the game runners put a hard timer on it. A 15-day level collapse timer.
And if you're still in the bubble, when that clock hits 0...
You're deleted. Gone. The bubble just pops.
So the stakes are terminal immediately from day 1. Now, I want to zoom in on the air quadrant first because the description of Humptown was fascinating to me. It sounds absolutely miserable.
It is incredibly bleak. So Humptown is this settlement built into a bowl-shaped depression right on top of the tomb.
Okay.
But the primary environmental hazard here is the wind. Violent, tearing sandstorms. And they aren't random at all. They happen like clockwork.
So the town has to prepare for them constantly.
Yes, they have to deploy these massive fabric shields. The text actually compares them to sailboat jibs. They hoist them up just to keep the buildings from being scoured right off the map.
So imagine you're living in a bowl, waiting for the wind to literally try and peel your skin off, all under a fake projected sky.
And the people living there, they are arguably way worse than the weather.
Which brings us to the first major faction in the bubble, the dromedarians.
The camels. But I think we really need to be specific about the visual here, because when you say camel, you bring to mind, a desert animal standing on four legs.
Right.
That is definitely not what we are dealing with here.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Think of the old Joe Camel cigarette ads from the 90s, but scale them up to 8 feet tall, make them bipedal, and put them in leather jackets.
Biker camel.
Biker camels. And their whole vibe isn't noble desert warrior. It's more like post-apocalyptic depression.
Because they are trapped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were formerly this proud nomadic warrior race, but because they're trapped inside a finite bubble, they can't roam. They have nowhere to go.
Their entire cultural identity has been stripped away by the sheer geography of the floor.
So they become completely lethargic. They've given up.
And the economy of Humptown is described pretty bluntly in the sources.
It is. It's basically a prostitution-based economy. The phrase the locals use constantly is cash, grass, or ass.
Wow.
Yeah. It feels like a mix between a really rundown brothel and a refugee camp. You have NPCs like Clay, the gatekeeper, who runs a scam on Carl almost the exact second he arrives.
It sets the tone immediately that this place is totally morally bankrupt. They are just killing time, waiting to die.
It really hammers home a central theme of this series, that the dungeon corrupts absolutely everything it touches.
Mm-hmm.
Even the NPCs are broken people.
Exactly. Clay basically just takes their money and gives them absolutely nothing useful in return. It's a complete grift.
But the dromedarians aren't the only ones in the air quadrant. Far above them, raining death from the sky on a regular basis, we have the gnomes.
The dirigible gnomes.
Yes. They occupy the air castle, which has the incredibly metal name, the Dreadnought Wasteland.
Dreadnought Wasteland is such a great name for a zone. It really sounds like a heavy metal album cover.
It fits them perfectly. These gnomes fly around in massive airships and just indiscriminately bomb the dromedarians down in Humptown.
It's a very classic death from above dynamic.
It is. But the reason for it, the motivation driving the gnomes, is really interesting. It's not just a raid for resources, it's deeply ideological.
So why do they hate the camels so much? What's the history there?
It goes back to the deep lore of the bubble itself.
Huh.
The gnomes genuinely believe that the camels were complicit in an ancient, horrific event brought about by Emperor Answer.
The guy buried down in the tomb.
Right. And because of this, the gnomes are essentially nihilists. They want to destroy the entire world just to finally find peace.
Wow.
They view wiping out the dromedarians not as an act of war, but as a moral imperative, a cleansing of the world.
So you have these severely depressed biker camels on the ground selling themselves just to survive, and these genocidal gnomes in the sky actively bombing them because of some ancient historical grudge.
Precisely. It's a complete stalemate of pure misery. And caught right in the middle of this mess, you have the third faction, which might actually be the most dangerous one because they are completely invisible.
The changelings.
The changelings.
Changelings are a staple in fantasy literature, but the implementation here in Book 4 feels specifically designed to just induce massive paranoia.
Oh, it absolutely is. The text introduces us to a group called the Changeling Principle.
Right.
This is a radical cult-like sect operating within the broader changeling society. Their entire philosophy is about infiltrating other groups and collecting powerful physical forms.
And the catch is they have to physically touch something to turn into it. Right?
Exactly. They have to make physical contact. So they are effectively body snatchers.
Terrifying.
And they've already completely infiltrated dromedarian society by the time Carl gets there. For example, there's a character named Henrik.
Who turns out to be the brother of Juicebox, the friendly NPC they meet?
Right, but Henrik is secretly a member of the Principle.
Mm-hmm.
He's been walking around pretending to be a camel for who knows how long.
And what is his ultimate goal? What does the principal actually want?
Their grand plan is to resurrect an ancient ghost queen named Quetzalcoatlus.
By giving her actual flesh.
Yes. They want to give this ethereal ghost a physical body so that they can finally touch her and copy her immense power.
That is wild.
Or, as a backup plan, they want to take control of the artifact we mentioned earlier, the gate.
It creates this intense who goes there vibe for the whole floor. Anyone you talk to, any ally you make, could just be a spy planning to resurrect a ghost queen.
And that paranoia is a huge designed part of the difficulty of Floor 5. You really can't trust your own eyes.
Okay, before we get into the mechanics of the gate itself, there's one more castle owner we really have to discuss.
Ah, yes.
The Mad Dune Mage, Ghazi. He's stationed down in the land castle. And his backstory, honestly, reading through the sources, it feels like a very dark, very pointed commentary on modern internet culture.
It really does. It's so incredibly specific. Ghazi is a glass mage, and he came to the dungeon willingly, specifically to find the gate.
Right.
But his motivation wasn't about gaining ultimate power or getting rich or saving the world like a standard hero. He wanted to use the gate to summon the god of lust, Yarilo,
And why did he want to summon the god of lust?
to bring his waifu to life.
His waifu. We are literally talking about a fictional character here.
Yes, completely fictional. A character named Lika from a play he had seen. She wasn't real,
Okay.
but he was completely entirely obsessed with her. He wanted to use this god's divine power to manifest a fictional woman into reality so he could marry her.
That is just tragic and creepy in equal measure. It's like the ultimate parasocial relationship gone completely wrong.
It is. But as you might expect, the dungeon didn't just give him what he wanted, did it?
No, the system always twists things.
Exactly. The spell went horribly, catastrophically wrong. Instead of pulling the god of lust, he accidentally summoned Samathi, who is a lesser deity, and along with her, a massive sand ooze.
Oh, no.
So now, Ghazi is permanently trapped. To even survive the corrosive ooze he summoned into his own castle, he had to cast a spell turning his own physical body into living sand.
Wait, let's just pause on that image for a second. He actually turned himself into sand.
Yes, he is a creature of living sand. He is shifting, gritty, formless.
That sounds agonizing.
He's locked up in his sand castle, guarding a piece of this world-ending artifact, completely insane, mourning a woman who never even existed, while his physical form is basically just disintegrating into a pile of dirt.
It's such a perfect, brutal example of how the dungeon exploits basic human desires. It dangles the mechanism to get exactly what you want right in front of you, but the cost is always your humanity.
Precisely. He wanted perfect, idealized love, and what he got was eternal, gritty, physical isolation.
So just to recap the absolute nightmare political landscape Carl is walking into here,
Let's hear it.
you have severely depressed camels, genocidal air gnomes, body-snatching changeling cultists, and an incel sand mage.
That sums it up perfectly. And to leave the level, he has to systematically beat every single one of them.
Which brings us to the actual MacGuffin of the book, the item everyone wants, the Gate of the Feral Gods. What exactly is this thing?
Well, the sources describe it as a celestial equivalent artifact.
And in RPG terms, celestial basically means world-breaking tier, right?
Exactly. It's top of the line, break the game powerful. Physically, it consists of 3 separate components: 2 pocket watches and 1 winding box.
And of course, because it's a dungeon, the pieces are split up among the worst people possible.
Classic fetch quest design. Henrik the Changeling, the cultist we talked about, has 1 watch. Commandant Kane, the leader of the genocidal gnomes, has the other watch. And Ghazi, our sand mage, has the winding box.
And what does putting them all together actually do?
It acts as a key. It opens a door, specifically a portal, to a place called the Nothing.
Which is the void between worlds.
Right, but there's a massive catch. When the gate eventually closes, the vacuum pressure created by the portal snapping shut pulls something from the Nothing into the real world.
And that something is a feral god.
Exactly. And we really need to define feral god here
Yeah.
because it's central to the entire theme of the book.
Right, because they aren't just big monsters.
No, these are ancient, incredibly powerful deities that were banished to the void a long time ago. Imagine being a god, completely conscious and locked in a pitch-black sensory deprivation tank for eternity.
It would break your mind.
The isolation, the darkness, the sheer lack of input. It has driven all of them completely insane.
So they are broken, hyper-violent, and completely uncontrollable.
Yes. So using the gate is essentially a forced swap. You get to leave the bubble, but a feral, insane monster takes your place and destroys whatever's left behind.
So Carl's strategy here takes a major shift. He realizes he doesn't just want to use the gate to escape the bubble. He looks at this artifact and realizes it's a weapon.
A nuclear option.
Exactly. If he can figure out how to control exactly where the gate opens, he can use these feral gods as biological bombs, or theological bombs, I guess.
He can quite literally drop a god on his enemies.
But first, they have to pull off the heist. They have to get the pieces. We won't go through every single beat of the fights because we'd be here for hours, but they are incredibly intense.
Oh, they are.
Hunting down and killing Henrik, and then storming the gnome dreadnought using a hot air balloon.
That aerial assault sequence is spectacular. It involves Carl essentially dropping out of the sky onto the deck of an airship. It's incredibly cinematic.
It really is. But the key acquisition, the really important one for the narrative, happens when they finally confront Ghazi.
Because they don't just get the winding box, they also pick up a companion.
Samantha.
Samantha.
Oh, we have to talk about Samantha. This is one of those distinct elements that makes Dungeon Crawler Carl so completely unique in the genre. Please explain Samantha to the listeners.
Okay, physically, she is the severed head of a sex doll.
Just the head?
Just the plastic head, nothing else.
Okay.
But metaphysically, she is the active vessel for Samantha.
The banished deity that Ghazi accidentally summoned.
Exactly. So imagine Carl having to carry around a plastic doll head in his inventory. But this head has the personality of a manic, hyper-violent, intensely jealous ex-lover.
And she talks constantly.
She screams. She screams about killing people's mothers. She gives these incredibly deep, serious lore dumps about the cosmic history of the other gods.
All right.
And she is obsessively, violently jealous of Ghazi's imaginary waifu, Lika.
It's just so absurd.
It is absurd, but the brilliant part is that she's actually critical to the plot. She isn't just a joke. She's the one who explains to Carl what the feral gods actually are, and more importantly, she is the one who warns them about Orthrus.
It's such a bizarre juxtaposition. You have this deep, genuinely terrifying lore about ancient banished gods, and it's being delivered by a screaming plastic doll head that Carl is holding by the hair.
That is Matt Dinniman's signature style in a nutshell. The visceral horror and the absurd humor are completely inseparable. Samantha is hilarious, but she's also a constant grim reminder of Ghazi's descent into madness.
And she leads them right into the next major crisis. Orthrus, the puppy.
The puppy.
This brings us to section 4 of our deep dive, and looking at the listener feedback and reviews on the book, this specific sequence seems to be the most purely stressful part for a lot of people.
It's the highest stakes in the book, hands down. It's the exact moment where the game stops feeling like a game you can win and starts feeling like a Kobayashi Maru test.
A completely no-win scenario. So set the scene for us. What exactly is Orthrus?
Well, imagine a two-headed dog. Now take that dog and scale it up until it is the size of a literal mountain.
A mountain.
Yes. Orthrus is classified as a juvenile gate guardian, level 10. And the text goes out of its way to describe him as a massive, clumsy, entirely innocent puppy. He isn't evil. He just wants to play.
But he's trapped.
He's trapped in the sea quadrant, out in the deep water, and the environment is hostile. He's being constantly attacked by swarms of sharks and bolts of lightning. He's taking steady damage over time.
And if the puppy's health bar hits 0, bad things happen.
Apocalypse-level things.
Yeah.
His stepfather is Emberus, the sun god.
A major deed.
A very major deity. The system broadcasts a very clear, unavoidable warning to the entire floor. If the puppy dies, Emberus will personally arrive and incinerate the entire bubble.
Everyone dies. Game over.
Total wipe.
So the mission for everyone in the bubble suddenly shifts from conquer the castles to save the puppy.
The quest pops up, and it's titled Where the Red God Glows. And it's a mandatory group quest. Every single faction, every player, every NPC needs that dog to live. Even the genocidal gnomes and the depressed camels have to immediately stop fighting each other.
Because if the dog dies, they all burn. But of course, the suspension crawler, Carl, so naturally there's a saboteur who ruins everything.
Quan CH.
Quan.
Another crawler, a human player. He decides, in his infinite wisdom, that the best way to eliminate his competition, primarily meaning Carl, is to intentionally kill the puppy.
To trigger the nuke.
Exactly. To trigger the god's wrath, kill everyone in the bubble, and then escape at the last possible second, using a highly specific personal ability he thinks will save him from the fire.
It's an absolute suicide play. So now you have Carl desperately trying to save a mountain-sized dog, while another human player is actively trying to murder it.
The sequence is just pure chaos. Carl ends up flying a makeshift biplane right at the dog's face, just to distract it from the attacks.
While Princess Donut is down below casting healing spells on it. Now, For the non-gamers listening, we really need to explain the mechanics of healing in this specific context, because normally healing someone is a good thing. Why is it so dangerous here?
Right, so in most RPGs, there's a core mechanic called aggro, which stands for aggression.
Okay.
If a monster is fighting a group and you stand in the back and heal the people fighting the monster is programmed to realize you are the problem.
Oh.
It will turn its aggression, its aggro, onto you.
It attacks the healer.
Exactly. But here, the logic is brilliantly twisted. The puppy isn't hostile. The puppy is friendly. So if you heal it, it really likes you. It realizes you are its friend.
And it wants to play with you.
Yes, and a playful pounce from a dog the size of a mountain is instantly fatal. It doesn't mean to crush you, but it's a mountain.
Right.
So Donut is running for her absolute life, using this terrifying spell called meat hooks to try and physically drag herself out of the way, all while continuously healing the dog to keep it alive. It's a complete nightmare.
And then, despite all their frantic efforts, the timer ticks down, the health gets too low. Or rather, the saboteur, Quan, manages to do just enough damage to push it over the edge.
And Emberus shows up.
The sun god himself.
He literally tears through the fake sky of the bubble. And the system identifies him as a locked god.
Which means
he is mechanically invulnerable. He doesn't have a health bar. You cannot fight him.
the description in the text is genuinely terrifying. Skin made of actual curls of orange and red fire.
And empty sockets where his eyes should be.
Right, because he previously plucked his own eyes out in grief.
He's completely unhinged. He thinks his stepson is dead, and he is there to burn the world to ash.
And this is exactly where Carl pulls off what I like to call the Carl Gambit. He looks at this literal god, realizes he absolutely cannot fight it with weapons or magic, and decides on a completely different approach.
He joins him.
This is honestly one of the smartest plays in the entire series.
It's a brilliant, outside-the-box use of the game's UI. Carl just opens his menu screen right there in the middle of the apocalypse and selects the option to worship Emberus.
You can just do that. Just click a button in the middle of a boss fight.
In this specific game system, yes. Religion is an actual tracked mechanic. You can choose a deity from a list to pledge yourself to.
Okay.
And becoming a worshiper instantly grants you a temporary buff called Divine Intervention. It mechanically makes you completely invulnerable to that specific god's damage for a very short window, like 60 seconds.
So he uses the god's own religious bureaucracy to survive the god's wrath.
He literally turns the game mechanics against the narrative. The system has to honor the buff.
So Carl survives the crash of his plane and the massive explosion caused by the saboteur solely because he is momentarily divine.
And because he survives, Emberus is able to see that the puppy is actually okay. Donut's healing worked just enough.
And then there's this surprisingly touching, bizarre moment where this terrifying, grieving sun god leans down and just asks, "Who's a good boy?"
The tonal whiplash is incredible, but it works. Crisis averted. The puppy lives. The bubble isn't nuked into glass.
And Carl walks away from the whole ordeal as an official, system-recognized acolyte of Emberus.
Which, if you know anything about how this series handles consequences, is going to have massive ripple effects.
Because being the priest of a highly volatile, grieving sun god is probably not a very stable career path.
It's like strapping a live bomb to your chest and calling it a holy vestment. It will definitely go off eventually.
So let's take stock. They have all the artifact pieces. They've barely survived the puppy incident. Now comes the major twist of the book. This is section 5.
The weaponization.
Right. Most normal players would assemble the gate, open a portal to the next floor, and just run. They would be thrilled to escape.
But Carl isn't a normal player anymore.
No. Carl decides to use the gate to launch an attack.
This is the pivotal moment for me in his character arc. This is where Carl stops being just a clever survivor and really starts being a systemic revolutionary.
He decides to target the game runners.
Specifically, he plans to aggressively disrupt the faction wars, which are this massive, highly produced event taking place way down on the 9th floor.
Wait, let's clarify that for the listener. They are currently on the 5th floor. How does he plan to hit the 9th floor from there?
Because the artifact is Celestial Tier, it can open a portal to absolutely anywhere in the dungeon, as long as you have the exact coordinates.
Okay, so he aims it down.
Carl's plan is to open a portal from their location on the 5th floor, directly into the middle of the 9th floor. But he uses a very specific, very dangerous loophole in the item's instructions.
The double dip.
The double dip rule. The text on the winding box clearly states that if you leave one pocket watch on the starting side of the portal and physically carry the other watch through to the destination side, it causes a feral god to be summoned on both sides of the portal when it closes.
2 gods for the price of 1. So he's essentially sending a feral present down to the game runners.
A feral present. But before they pull the trigger, they organize an evacuation for the friendly NPCs. They send Juicebox and the ally changelings through a safe portal to the 6th floor just to get them out of the blast radius.
And then they trigger the trap for the 9th floor?
They do.
So who actually comes through the gate? What do they summon?
Well, to fully answer that, we have to mention that earlier in the chaos, they accidentally released a level 150 giant turkey god.
A giant turkey.
A giant gore-eating turkey, yes.
Of course.
It was a mistake earlier on, but it just adds to the insane chaos of the battlefield.
But the main event during the actual weaponization is a demon, right?
Yes, a demon named Slit.
Slit.
A feral minor demon, level 200. The text describes her as this extremely fat, winged demon wielding a crackling lightning whip.
Terrifying.
And because absolutely everything in Matt Dinniman's universe is somehow connected, she actually has a deep personal history with Samantha.
The plastic doll head? Of course she does.
Slit arrives on the battlefield and immediately ignores Carl to try and brutally murder Samantha, all because of an ancient love triangle involving a razor elemental.
I really just love that we can sit here and casually say a sentence like a love triangle involving a razor elemental, and it makes total logical sense in the context of the story.
It's the brand. You just accept it.
But how does Carl actually deal with a level 200 demon?
He doesn't.
Yeah.
The resolution of this specific conflict is incredibly brutal and out of his hands. A massive, multi-armed, real god appears on the scene.
Because the system summons real gods to deal with feral gods, right?
Exactly. The real god arrives, takes one look at Slit, and just effortlessly rips her entirely in half.
It really demonstrates the sheer power gap in the universe.
Yeah.
Feral gods are nightmare fuel to the human players, but real gods look at them like we look at insects.
Exactly. Instant, messy termination. But the fact that Slit died doesn't mean Carl failed. The sheer chaos of the summoning serves Carl's primary purpose perfectly.
Because the other half of the portal opened on the 9th floor.
Right. He successfully disrupts the faction wars. He introduces an uncontrollable, violently insane variable directly into the game runner's most carefully planned, highly televised scenario.
He ruins their TV show.
He ruins the broadcast. And amidst all this cosmic god warfare, Carl manages to pull off one last, highly personal prank on the game runners.
Oh, the flood.
The flood.
This one felt incredibly petty, but also incredibly satisfying.
It really was.
Yeah.
So when he evacuates Juicebox, he purposefully sends her through a portal that exits completely underwater in the 6th floor start zone.
He changes the coordinates.
He does. And because of the pressure differential, it basically floods the entire dry starting area of the 6th floor with millions of gallons of seawater.
And sharks.
And sharks. Lots of angry sharks.
It's petty, it's highly destructive, and it's actually deeply strategic.
It's a textbook example of asymmetrical warfare. By doing this, he forces the game runners to burn massive amounts of their own resources just to fix the level for the other players.
It actively disrupts the in-game economy.
Exactly. It sends a very clear, undeniable message to the showrunners.
Yeah.
I am not just playing your little survival game anymore. I am actively breaking your equipment.
He's ruining their set.
He's making them pay.
Which brings us nicely to the aftermath of the book. We really need to look at how these characters are evolving, because Book 4 feels like a massive turning point for the series. Carl definitely isn't the same guy who walked down the stairs in his boxers with his ex-girlfriend's cat back in Book 1.
No, absolutely not. He is hardening. Like we mentioned, he's becoming a religious figure now, an acolyte of Emberus, which brings its own weird baggage.
But emotionally, he's becoming much colder.
He is. There's a quiet but vital moment in the aftermath where he finds a hidden note from a previous deceased crawler named Cooley. He finds it tucked inside a book.
What does the note actually say?
It's basically a call to arms across generations of crawlers.
Yeah.
It essentially says that if you know you're going to die in the dungeon, your only real job is to make sure you take as much of their corrupt system with you as physically possible.
It's a manifesto.
It is. It deeply inspires him. It shifts his entire worldview from, I need to survive the next trap, to, I am going to make them burn for building the trap.
He starts actively, maliciously plotting against the Barant and the Velte.
The alien corporations running the broadcast.
Right. He realizes he is willing to sacrifice pieces on the board if it means hurting the system itself.
It's a dark path to walk.
And what about Donut? She's often the primary comic relief, but she's definitely changing too, isn't she?
Donut is a fascinating character study. On one hand, she is becoming even more obsessed with the concept of social media fame. She actually asks Mordecai, their manager, to spend their hard-earned resources to buy a specific UI upgrade.
Just so she can read the audience chat comments in real time while they're in the dungeon.
Which just sounds like an absolute nightmare for your mental health.
And it is. It's incredibly toxic.
She's reading horrible hate comments and obsessive love comments while actively fighting for her life against monsters. But on the other hand, she's really shifting away from just being Carl's pet.
She's becoming a strategic player in her own right.
Yes, though she still deeply struggles with the sheer visceral violence of the situation. There's a scene earlier in the book during a fight with some mutated geese where she just mentally checks out.
She dissociates.
Completely dissociates. The violence is too much for her mind to process. But despite that trauma, she's actively learning the mechanics. She's becoming a true partner, not just a sidekick, waiting for Carl to save her.
We also really start to see the psychological toll on the supporting cast in this book. Take Katya, for instance.
Katya is struggling hard. She took on the game guide role, which sounds great on paper, but the psychological pressure of knowing she has to be the one to figure things out is mounting fast.
She's starting to rely a bit too heavily on Carl to make the hard calls.
It really highlights that not everyone handles the intense pressure of the dungeon the exact same way. When Carl gets pushed to the brink, he gets angry and destructive.
But when Katya gets pushed, she gets paralyzed and scared.
Exactly. It's a very realistic portrayal of trauma responses.
And looking at the even bigger picture, the epilogue of Book 4 gives us a really important glimpse of the outside world beyond the dungeon.
Right. We're introduced to Dr. Who and the organization known as the Open Intellect Pacifist Action Network.
That is a mouthful of an acronym.
It is.
Yeah.
But they are a very serious group. And they have decided they are going all in on Carl.
Meaning what, exactly?
They're sponsoring him heavily, sending him high-tier items. They see him as the catalyst they need. But the epilogue also shows us that the war isn't contained to the dungeon anymore. It's violently spilling out onto Earth.
Real-world saboteurs.
Yes, alien saboteurs are actively hunting down and assassinating former crawlers and specific NPCs on the surface of Earth.
So it's not just a horrific reality TV show anymore. It's escalating into a full-blown, global, intergalactic conflict.
The neat little lines between the game world and the real world are completely blurring away.
So if we zoom out and look at the entirety of the Gate of the Feral Gods, what is the core takeaway for you? What is the real deep dive insight we should pull from this?
Honestly, I think the real insight is hiding right there in the title, the word feral.
How so?
The book introduces us to these feral gods, right? These ancient cosmic beings that have been driven completely mad by the nothing, by the eternal isolation and the endless trauma of their banishment.
They lash out and destroy things because they are deeply, fundamentally broken.
Exactly. And the parallel here is Carl.
Carl is becoming feral.
That's the tragedy of the arc. The human crawlers are being driven mad by the relentless, grinding trauma of the dungeon system. They are slowly becoming feral themselves.
So Carl is weaponizing the feral gods against his enemies, but internally he's also weaponizing his own growing trauma.
He's becoming unpredictable. He's becoming dangerous. He's becoming broken. The moral line between the insane monsters trapped in the nothing and the supposed human heroes trapped in the dungeon is getting very, very thin.
That is a deeply haunting thought to leave on. The idea that to defeat the monster that built the maze, you have to let yourself become a monster.
It is the central driving tragedy of the entire series. And Book 4 is exactly where we really see that tragedy take deep root in Carl's psyche.
Well, on that surprisingly cheerful and existential note, we are going to wrap up this deep dive into Dungeon Crawler Carl, Book 4.
It's a wild ride.
It truly is a masterclass in chaotic, high-stakes storytelling, and if you haven't read it yet, you are missing out on one of the most wildly inventive lit RPGs out there right now.
Absolutely. Just, maybe don't go trying to summon any grieving sun gods while you're reading it.
Solid advice. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep crawling.
See you on the next floor.